We'll be covering the topic of productivity and consistency within your work. So if you are a student, if you are an entrepreneur, if you work in like a traditional work setting, whatever it is, I think productivity is one of those tools that is super important just to be successful in your life. And so I know a lot of people on my Instagram ask me for tips about how to be more productive, how to get more done in your day. And so this week I'm going to be covering a few specific tips and how-tos on how to be productive on your day. So today we're going to focus on planning. Before you can do anything, you need to know why you want to do it and how you're going to do it. And so for me, that comes into play huge in the mornings when I am planning and reflecting. Currently, I'm working in my bullet journal, and so I'm gonna show you how I plan out my day. So the first thing that I like to do is get an overview of my schedule for the week, and this really helps me to look at all the appointments I have and see what I have to do this week, see what places I have to be, what appointments I have to go to, and then from there see what open time that I have in my schedule to do other things like get work done. The next thing that I like to do is start to brain dump everything. I'm a big advocate for brain dumping, especially in terms of planning your week, because you can go into your week like mentally thinking about all the things. Okay, I need to get this done, I need to go to this place, I need to be with this person, I need to finish this assignment, and so on and so forth. But until you put it on paper, it can be really hard to like actually remember to get everything done and to properly plan. So what I do next is I will open up to a new sheet in my journal or just take out a blank sheet of paper, and I will brain dump absolutely every single task that I need to get done in the next week to next 7 to 10 days. All my tasks is I will do what's called calendar blocking or time blocking, and that's basically where you assign those tasks to specific time slots in your calendar. Now that I've written down everything that I need to do, what I will now do is go into my iCalendar and I will set specific times for pretty much all of these tasks. One thing that with calendar blocking is that by giving yourself a certain amount of time or a certain like time stamp to do certain things, it allows you to hold yourself accountable and be consistent in what you're doing. The only advice that I would give is that when you are time blocking, I like to be a little broad. I'm just gonna go through and add each of these tasks into my calendar, and then I will plan out my day. One thing I would also like to point out is that you should definitely implement self-care time into your calendar, especially when if you're a person that gets really busy. It's good to implement that kind of time. I also like to leave these little blocks in my day because it helps me to give myself some margin of error, just in case certain things run over or I don't get a certain task done or just life happens. It allows me to have certain margins in my day. Specifically, today I intend to be productive, and my focus is on reading articles because that's what I really want to get done today. So what I then do is I determine my top 3 for today, and I got this from Irene on Demand, and the idea is that you essentially set the top 3 tasks that you want to accomplish, and if you don't get anything else done today, those are the top 3 things that you'll do. So today my top 3 are looking at my brain dump. My top 3 today are just reading. I want to read and make notes for at least 4 articles today. It's the number one priority. The second thing that I really want to get done is I'm going to finish this logo that I'm working on for someone. And then the last thing would be to probably finish these deadlines. Setting these deadlines for clusters. Okay, those are the top 3 that I've established for today, and if I don't get anything else done, those are the 3 things that I'll need to do. So that's kind of how I'm focusing on today. I'm so tired. I've been reading all day, on and off, which got really exhausting. So I will say that one thing that I've learned is that it is okay to adjust your schedule. I didn't get everything accomplished that I wanted to get accomplished today, but I did get some stuff done, so I feel good about it. Don't be afraid to move tasks around, reschedule things. You also start to realize that there are things that you schedule into your day that aren't that important. So you can learn to delegate them or just delete them altogether. If you work with a team on any like projects or in any leadership capacity, it's good to know like who in your team is good at certain things so that you can ask them to help them in the areas of their strengths rather than you wasting time compensating for your weaknesses. So that's always something that's good to know. So right now I'm working on editing the vlog that's going to go out this week. I also just put a load of clothes in the laundry. Today I really want to talk a bit about just balancing your schedule and your tasks. It can be kind of difficult when you have a lot of stuff going on to know what to prioritize, to know what to get done, what needs to get done first, how to go about doing everything and prioritizing and organizing your stuff. So I'm just going to give you a couple of tips to think of just to focus on that area. So the first thing that I want to touch on is the 80-20 rule states that 80% of your results comes from 20% of your input. So the idea is to really figure out what that 20% is and just focus in on that rather than wasting the other 80%. The reason I say this is because a lot of times when we're trying to be productive, we fill up our days with the things that bring us the 20% of the outcome. And so really being productive is focusing on the most important things and the things that bring you the highest return. You can think of this in terms of your studying, in terms of working, in terms of exercising. What exercises will bring you the most physical gain rather than doing a whole bunch of extra stuff. Some more tangible tips that I can give is to break your tasks down into smaller tasks. So for me, for example, I am reading this textbook for my research this summer. It's a really good book if you're interested in community development. But I'm not reading the whole book, but I am focusing on certain chapters. And I really don't like to read. It's not one of my favorite. It's not one of my biggest strong suits. But for me, the easiest thing to do is to break down the chapters into sections. So instead of saying, I'm going to read 3 chapters of my textbook today. That's a very general goal. I would more frame that in saying I'm going to read chapter 6, sections 6.1 to 6.5 from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. I'm going to read 6.6 to 6.10 from 10:30 to 12, and then breaking it down like that. And so by the end of the day, you will finish chapter 8 by 5 p.m. Giving yourself specific time slots and small tasks to complete really helps you to frame whatever you're doing. Another thing that I like to do is I like to keep things on sticky notes. That really helps me to stay on task. A lot of times I put them on my laptop because if I'm ever working on something and I just get bored with a specific task, instead of me fiddling around trying to find something else to keep me productive, I can see, okay, here are the 5 things that are on my sticky notes that I need to do. If I don't feel like doing this, let me focus on one of these things that is also important. So that's just another thing. Another thing that I like to do are no extra time or net time, which I forget who I got it from, but I think I got it from a YouTuber. And it's this idea that we all have to do pretty mundane things throughout our day. We have to drive or ride to and from school or work. We have to fold our laundry. We have to do dishes. We have to go to the grocery store. We have to run errands. what if sometimes for me, I feel like in doing those things, I'm wasting time. Like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me 30 minutes to run these few errands, and or it's going to take me 25 minutes to fold this laundry. Like, I feel like I'm wasting time. And so what I like to do and what I've learned to do is filling those times with other things. While I'm folding my laundry, I might listen to a podcast. In the morning, one of the things that I like to do while I'm getting ready is listening to motivational speeches. And so I'm using my morning time to do some self-care, fill me up while I'm also doing some mundane things like my makeup or my hair, things like that. So it's this idea that you're using your time as an investment, because time is something that you'll never get back. So use it with things that will pour into you and bring you the highest reward. So that's stuff. It was a long day. It's 4:30 right now. I've been going since pretty much 9 this morning. What did I do today? This morning I went to breakfast. Then I went to Starbucks and I worked on a couple of things that I had time blocked in my calendar. And so everything that I planned to get done this morning before my first seminar at 11:30 got done. So I had my seminar at 11:30, and then I had lunch with my advisor at 12:30. We went to go get sushi. It was super good. It was really good. And then came back to the library in my building, and I've been working for like the past, I want to say hour, and I'm going to say the past hour. I'm really tired. I keep saying that on here, but I really am tired. And then me and Josh, in about 30 minutes, me and Josh are gonna head to go work out. Just left the coffee shop. I was in there for about 4 hours doing work today, but it was super productive. As productive as I could make it. I spent a lot of time reading and doing a lot of reading and research, but it was super productive. So I wanted to get on here while I was stuck in traffic and give a few productivity tips. So I wanted to start with explaining this thing called Parkinson's principle or Parkinson's law. And it's basically this concept that a task will expand to fit the amount of time that you allot to it. So if you tell yourself that you are going to give yourself 4 hours to complete a task, it's going to take you the full 4 hours to complete it. No matter how big or small that task is, ideally. But if you say, hey, I'm going to do this in 2 hours, then you're more likely to complete that task within those 2 hours. So the idea is that you set yourself a specific amount of time to get something done, and it'll increase your likelihood of actually achieving that goal. And so the way that I like to apply this specifically to productivity is really by being disciplined in what I do. When I sit down to do some work, I try to eliminate as many distractions and get as focused as possible so that I can get the task done. And the way that I do that is really by implementing Parkinson's law. The first way I do that is through using the Pomodoro method, and that is basically where you set a timer for 25 minutes, you laser focus on one specific task for 20 minutes straight without distractions, and then you give yourself a 5-minute break. And you do this cycle 2 to 4 times, and after the 4 Pomodoros, you give yourself a longer break, which is 30 minutes to an hour, depending on what you want to give yourself. And so the way that this looks, when I
tell myself, okay, like, you're gonna focus on this task for 20 minutes and you're gonna stay focused and you're not gonna get distracted. It really helps me to identify what I need to get done, and it gives me a really specific time stamp on it. And then when it's time for me to have my breaks, I can do whatever I want. But once those breaks are over, it's back to work, and that just really helps me to stay focused. Another thing I like to do is use different like website blockers. So there's tons of different apps on your phone and for your computers that you can use, where you can basically set up a block list of all the websites that you don't want to give yourself access to. So on my block list, I have things like Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, sometimes YouTube, depending on what I'm doing. And then I set up my timer, and then for that amount of time, I am not able to access any of those websites. And on the converse side, you're also able to set up what they call like a whitelist, which allows you to use certain websites, only those websites in that time slot. So that's been really helpful for me in the past, especially studying for finals. But with it, in this case, it's been helpful because I do have to spend a lot of time like reading and researching and writing my paper and everything. So that's been really helpful. Another thing is having accountability, putting your phone away, out of your sight. Also, what I mentioned yesterday about like the sticky note, having your to-do list right in front of you and only having like the most important things on that to-do list, so that you're not distracted by like the 25 other things that you may or may not have to do that day. That's been effective for me in just staying productive and staying focused on like what I have to do. So